Welcome, everyone. My name is Duncan, Ivison, President and Vice Chancellor. Welcome to this town hall on Your Voice Matters, so the new staff survey we're going to be doing every year from here on in. We've got about a lot of people online and very welcome colleagues in the room, so we'll sort of toggle back between the room and online, but I think there's 3 or 4 times as many people online as in the room, so we might have a bias towards online. The QR code is for Mentimeter. That takes you to Mentimeter, so we also have Mentimeter working in the background, and Helen will keep us up to date with that. So I'm going to hand over to Ellie and Rachel in a second, just to say that, so when I started, it was really important to me that we have a sort of trustworthy, regular tool for testing how our staff are both feeling about the university across many dimensions, as well as the ability to provide feedback on a sort of regular basis. So I'm really pleased and grateful to Rachel and the team for getting this new framework in place. Of course, you know, we'll learn as we go. We'll improve things and how we use it and how we learn from it. But I'm really pleased that we've got this now in place. And as I said, it's something we'll do every year. So it's not a one-off. It's not a sort of just doing it because, you know, it's my first year. It's going to be a regular part of how we work together as a community. Obviously, it's timely because it gives us a good baseline for the things we want to do in relation to this strategy, in relation to a whole bunch of other work we're doing in the university. So obviously, it's great timing for that. But I do want to make clear that it's something we're really committing to from here on in. And as I say, we'll learn, we'll get better. I mean, the other thing that's super important, and Rachel and Ellie will talk about this in much, much more detail, is how we respond, right? So it's really important that the community feels as though we're all listening to each other and we're all coming up with ways of responding. And some things, hopefully, we can address really quickly. Other things will take more time, and some things might be more controversial or more difficult, or, you know, things that we need to really grapple with over an extended period. So the way we respond is just as important to me as the fact that we're having this regular survey. So that was the second thing I wanted to really emphasize. But I also don't want a whole mini industry in action plans. We need to be kind of smart about it and practical about it and sensible about it. So that, I guess that's one of the other messages for today, but obviously there are better and worse ways of doing that. So let's figure that out. And then the final thing to say is, obviously, you know, we're learning a lot about you know, how the organization works and our ambitions for the future. And this is a really important aspect of that, but there'll be other things we'll be doing as well, both in the staff development space, in our work with the Students' Union, our work with the trade unions, our work with a whole range of staff networks. So this is part of a broad, I hope, approach and commitment to really engaging with the university community in really constructive ways, because there's hard stuff that we have to do living in the kind of hard world that we do. So that's all I wanted to say by introduction. I'll now hand over to Ellie.
Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon, everyone. So for those of you that haven't met me before, I'm Ellie Morrissey, and I'm your Exec Director of People. And with me today is Rachel McGraw. So Rachel heads up our colleague voice, and she's head of colleague voice within the People team. I think just to build on Duncan's point, what's really important to me about this survey is the fact that it's my first one. So this really sets a baseline of where we need to prioritise effort and direction within the People function to really drive forward engagement over the next 10 years as we support Manchester 2035. So we're going to take you on a bit of a journey. I suggest you strap yourselves in, because there's going to be some highs and some lows as we talk about why is engagement important, why is it important to the point in time that we're at in terms of embarking on a new 10-year strategic framework. We'll talk about the strengths, and obviously that's really important that we consider where our strengths are, because we need to continuously focus on those and make sure that we retain those strengths. But equally, we need to look at where our areas for opportunity are and where we need to pinpoint and focus activity. So the engagement survey is a point in time. It's a set of indicators. It's a temperature check. It's how people were feeling at the time that they were filling out this survey. And it's part of a wider strategy to promote and engage in more regular dialogue with our employees. So without further ado, I will hand over to Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks, Duncan and Ellie. You've done my first couple of slides for me, so that's really great. Thank you. Yes. Can we just have the first slide, please? So I just wanted to kind of start by saying that employee engagement, there are loads and loads of different definitions of it. It can mean different things to different organisations. And when we were looking at survey providers, we looked at all of the models that they use and the ways that they measure that engagement. But I just wanted to start with this slide. It just gives a little bit of an overview of, this is a CIPD definition of engagement. And it talks about, like Duncan talked about, that commitment and motivation for organisations, especially for us where we are with Manchester 2035. It's a temperature check to see where our engagement is with colleagues at the moment. And then I also like to use this kind of piece of research from Gallup, which talks about the importance of managers and line managers and leaders in engagement as well. And you'll notice in the survey this time, there were quite a few questions there around leaders and line managers as well. Next slide, please. And also, why is it important that we measure engagement and that we understand how engaged our staff are? Lots and lots of different reasons. Again, we want people to have a good experience. We really want people to have a great experience of working here. It can help us all do our jobs better. The thing around innovation is interesting as well. And again, we've been talking a lot in Manchester 2035 about innovation and new ideas. And engaged staff feel safe to come up with ideas and share those ideas. And I think that's really important and a good thing to be measuring at this point in 2035 as well. Next slide. Thanks. So just a few facts about the survey, just in case you're not quite aware of it. So it is a snapshot in time. We are doing it annually. We also do join a 1-year and leaver surveys. They're live all the way through the year, so we have got that opportunity to check in on engagement throughout the year as well. We did look at the survey design this time in a bit of a different way. We used the People Insight as our partner and their model of engagement. So the questions were all focused around the 5 drivers of engagement that model uses. And just over 12,500 colleagues were invited to take part. Next slide. So just starting with a few of the facts and figures, the response rate was 51%, so that was slightly up on the last staff survey in 2022, that was 49%. So as you can see, 6,376 colleagues took part. That's kind of just below the average for the Russell Group. So People Insight say that response rates for the Russell Group are around 58%. So we do have some work to do there to encourage colleagues to see the value in taking part in this survey. And I've just added that question in as well, which you recognise from the survey, about belief in action. And often that is linked to response rates. So people say, well, I'm not taking part in the survey because I don't believe anything will happen as a result. So this is the key kind of trust measure question within the survey. And you can see there almost a third of colleagues believe action, well, just over a third believe action will take place. But the grey area is neither nor, and the dark grey area is don't believe action will take place. So that's a key kind of measure, and Ellie and Duncan will talk more about action planning and our response to the survey. Next slide. And then just this one. So again, the People Insight model uses a measure of engagement, but that is used to benchmark against 15 Russell Group universities that they work with and 75 HEIs based in the UK. And they use this way to measure the engagement levels across all of those organisations by looking at the favourable responses to these 5 key engagement questions, which get asked in every survey that People Insight run. So we end up with a score, 79%. It is up slightly from the 2022 survey. But for me, that isn't really the most important kind of measure or score. It might sound a bit unusual for me to say that. I think it's there and it's interesting to see what that level is. But I think what's really important about this survey is that just over those 6,500 people who took part have given us their time, their insight, their experience, and that's really where the useful kind of information sits. And I know Ellie's going to come on and talk about some of the strengths and some of the areas that we really need to focus on. So I think with that, I'm handing over to Ellie to take us through some of the findings. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm not continuously turning around to you. I'm going to use the stats in front of me as well. So what should be behind me is 5 statements. Now, these statements through the research are shown to be the most key drivers of engagement. So if organisations get high results in these 5 areas, then you are more than likely to have more highly engaged colleagues within the organisation. And as we've just heard from Rachel, the more highly engaged your colleagues are, the better experience they will be giving to customers, students, etc., consumers. They will be speaking positively about the organisation to stakeholders and to other people that we may want to draw in from a talent management perspective. So the first one, I feel like I belong here. 70% of people either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. That's a really, really fantastic result that collectively we should be really, really proud of. And belonging is one of the key characteristics that we've woven in to Manchester 35 as being, you know, an important driver for its success. And that was up 5% based on the last survey, which was in 2022, for those of you that were here. I'm enthusiastic about my job. 66% agree, so not quite as high a statistic there. No comparison, because that was a new question. My career aspirations are being met here. Only 47% agreed with that statement. You'll see that theme threading through the results as we go through in terms of career development being a key priority for us. I believe the university is doing a good job of advancing education, knowledge and wisdom. 82% agree. That's up by 11%. That's fantastic. You'll see threaded through a real strong sense of purpose and you know, alignment from individuals through to the purpose of the university and what we do, which is fantastic. And the university executive team leads the university well. Only 38% agree or strongly agree. So that's only 4% up on the last survey. So that, again, that's a thread that we need to focus on. Now, recognising, I think I worked it out, it's a 50% changeover in university executives since this survey was done. So, you know, we are confident that that result will be improved over the next few months as we drive forward. Next slide, please. So these stats are compared to the last survey, just internally within the university. And these are the strongest areas compared to the last survey. So my manager takes time to support and develop my skills, which again is a consistent theme between that relationship between manager and individual, which is really, really good. I believe the university is doing a good job of advancing education and knowledge and wisdom, 82%, as we've just said. So that's up by, and I can't read that because it's too small, I think it's 11% on the last survey. And working at the university makes me want to do the best work that I can, 76%, up by 6%. And I feel like I belong, as we've already said, and my opinion is sought on decisions that affect my work is increased, but still only 61%, so still opportunities to improve there. So some really good strengths compared to the last survey. If we move on to the next slide, so we'll dip down into the trench for a couple of minutes in terms of where are the biggest opportunity areas in comparison to the last survey. So it won't surprise anybody to hear change management and change being communicated being a theme. We heard that through the SEP evaluation results, and we heard that through the work that we do with our trade unions as well and the conversations that we have with them. There's a lot of great work going on behind the scenes at the moment to develop our methodology and approach to change leadership within the organisation, recognising and taking on board this feedback. My work is interesting and challenging, 76%, which is still quite a high statistic, but it's dropped by 7 in comparison to the last survey. So we need to understand, you know, why that is. The university manages change effectively. My career aspirations are being met here. So again, careers and development is a constant piece of feedback that we're hearing through this, and it won't surprise you to know that's one of the key priorities that my team are taking forward into our delivery plan moving forward. So we'll be looking to introduce a whole suite of new learning and development and career opportunities through the talent development team from the start of this forthcoming academic year. That will include looking at, you know, early in career individuals and how we take them forwards. It'll also be looking at how we build on the mandatory training that we rolled out towards the end or beginning of this year, and how we develop that out in terms of core competencies and learning and skills for people to do their jobs well. There's other bits within that as well that we can support with managing careers. It's how we design our teams. So are there roles or steps that people can see that they can take in order to promote their careers? And our reward and recognition frameworks, we're tied to a national framework at the moment, but question, is that really driving the contribution and the behaviours that we need to see with Manchester 35? It tends to drive people's careers only looking upwards, whereas actually we want to encourage people to develop more cross-functionally in other areas across the university. Everyone here is given an equal opportunity to develop and progress, so only 51% and down by 6. So some real opportunities there that we've heard loud and clear in terms of some clear themes that we will be taking forward. Next slide. So we've done a very high level sort of comparison here across our 3 sort of key categories of people that work here: academic, research and professional services. And we're going to look at the highest scoring questions, and then we're going to dip back into the trench and look at the lowest ones. So you'll see some patterns and some continuity across here, which is good. So as the university as a whole, I care about the future of the university. 90% of people, that's a really, really great start, really, really is. I'm trusted to get on with my job, 89%. Manager treats me fairly and with respect, 87%. Clear about how my work makes a positive contribution to the success of the uni, 84%. And the people I work with help and support each other, 84%. And again, sort of teams and how people work together and the support that we give each other within our local communities within the university has come out really, really strongly, which is a huge USP for an organisation. So we should be really, really proud of that. Looking down the academics, so I, again, care about the university, work is interesting. Well, in fact, it's exactly the same. Oh, no, it's not. Manager treats me fairly and with respect, 83%. I mean, that's still a really, really high statistic. And I'm trusted to get on with my job, 83%. Research, again, some similarities. I'm trusted. My work is interesting. The part of the university I work in enables flexible working. That's another great strong theme that we've seen. Manager treats me with respect, and I care about the future of the university. I mean, that's brilliant. And professional services, trusted to get on with my job, care about the future, treated fairly, clear about how my work delivers a positive contribution, and the people I work with help and support each other. So loads of really, really strong foundations that are really important to our success. Dipping back down and looking at the lowest areas or the areas for opportunity, and this is the slide where university and academic are the same. I knew it was one or the other. How frequently do you feel stressed at work? So this is a strong theme that's come out. Stressed at work, bullying and harassment. So we'll come on to that in a second. Again, university managers change effectively. Reasons for change are communicated. So we've talked about how we intend to address that. There's a new team within the People Directorate called Org Effectiveness and Culture, where we are really focusing on the people experience of change and making sure that through the SEO or change that might be done locally in your area, we've got clear methodology and ways of doing that to make sure that people are central to the delivery of change. But what I will say is, doing change well doesn't mean everybody agrees to the change. So we need to be pragmatic and realistic about, when you look at Manchester 35, we can all clearly see the degree of change and transformation that we need to go on. So our commitment is that we will do that in a really, really people-centred way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every change that we do, all 16,000 people on the payroll this month, Gary, wasn't there? All 16,000 people. 16,000? 16,000. Changes every month.
It was only 13,000.
Well, yeah. We paid 16,000 this month. That's all I can say. So, yeah.
I'm going to lose my job as I go.
Yeah. So just hold that thought, because that's really important when we're thinking about expectations of change leadership. And then the university executive team leads the university well, so 38%. Again, there's 50% change in the university leadership, so great opportunity to prove that out, that actually there is a strong leadership team at the helm supporting the leadership of the university. So research, again, stressed at work. Job security, I guess not surprising for that group. We have high proportions of people on shorter term contracts and arrangements within that population. Change management, Recognised and thanked regularly for my contribution to the university, 31. That's got to be a real quick win to make sure that we're saying thank you and recognising people. So that's definitely one to take away. And professional services, again, stressed. Bullying and harassment has come out there. Although the highest proportion you can see along the top there at 8% with the academics, where there's a strong prevalence there. Change management. I believe action will be taken as a result of this survey. So that's with us, isn't it, to make sure that not that we do it all, of course, but that we are constantly keeping this conversation alive through the next few months before we get to February, March, where we're embarking on the next one. So there's a real strong commitment at university leadership and through the board to make sure that this conversation is consistently held, under the spotlight. Next slide, please. So the comments, so there's this opportunity to give free text here, which I always, when I get these surveys, and I've been getting these surveys for 30 years now, I always go to the comments first, because I think they're really, really telling, where people have got that sort of natural opportunity to just tell you how they think. People and teamwork, flexible working, pay and benefits came out really, really strongly in the comments. Pay and benefits came out equally on the flip side as well. As you probably, there's always an element of that in these surveys, that you look at one stat and it might appear to contradict another. But systems and processes, workload and resource management came out as well. Next slide, please. And then the 3 words. So I'm going to hold my hand up and say I'm one of the people that put challenging. But I put challenging in the context of I took this job because I knew it was going to be challenging, and that's what motivates and gets me out of bed every morning. But equally, somebody could have put challenging because they're overwhelmed, they're struggling, they're under pressure. So again, as Rachel said, this is all indicators, temperature checks, can openers, as I call it, opportunities to have conversations with people, because we can all interpret things in different ways. So the word cloud is quite interesting. Okay, next slide, please, or final slide, I think, from me. So bullying, harassment and discrimination. So this stings me personally as a people director to see this statistic, and I expect it will for you as well. We're doing a much deeper analytical dive into this to understand, is it particular parts of the university, is it particular levels, people, certain types of workers, certain grades, or is it peppered? Is it just peppered across the whole institution? So there's more analysis that's happening in this area to define some of the work that we need to do to improve this. And I'm told this has been said before at these surveys, but we do have a zero tolerance for bullying and harassment. And I would encourage anybody who is experiencing poor behaviours or to come forward and to discuss that, so that we can address that, because that is certainly a statistic that we really need to see an improvement on over the next few months. Okay, I'm going to hand the baton back to Rachel.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So thanks for that, Ellie. That's just some highlights of the key findings. And really, as Duncan suggested at the start, the real work starts now. In some ways, doing the survey is the straightforward part. It's how do we collectively as an organisation look at all of that data and all of that insight and use it in a meaningful way to develop action plans as we go forward. Now, previously with staff surveys, there's been a separate staff survey action plan, but this time around, the decision has been taken to not do that, not have a separate staff survey action plan, because actually the findings and the information should really feed into all of our strategies and all of our delivery plans related to Manchester 2035, and that's what's going to happen this time. So you'll find throughout Manchester 2035 those themes that Ellie's talked about, both the positive that we need to build on and maintain, and the areas obviously where we need to do further work. So the people and the EDI delivery plans will be key in that, but all of those actions don't just sit with people in EDI as well. That statistic at the start around leaders and line managers having a really key role and responsibility here around engagement is absolutely critical. So there will be a small number of university-wide level action themes. They're the kinds of things where collectively it makes sense to take that approach, or there might be specific investment required, or a cross-university approach. But this time we also want to empower local leaders and managers to take local action. So everybody, every leader has had their local set of results and has got access to, a large group of them have got access to the People Insight dashboard, so they can look at that data and insight in much more detail. And where there are actions that it's clear to you as a leader or a manager that there's something that you can do locally in your area to try and address that, then you have the ability to do that this time, which I think this hybrid kind of approach to action planning hopefully will help get some of those more quick win kind of actions going as well. So it will be a mixture and an experimental approach, and we are learning as we go with this approach. And then we've been asked to report and monitor back into University Executive on a regular basis, and that's what we will be doing as well. And also sharing stories of actions where they've been taken. So we have the Your Voice Matters hub on StaffNet, where there's lots of stories there from across the university, talking about how colleague feedback and ideas has already been used or is being used to help improve the experience. So if you've got a story there that you would like to share with the rest of the university, then you can email that, the Uni News email address, and share that with us, and we will gladly share that on the hub. And I think that is the last slide. Is that the last slide? Yep. Yes, yeah, thank you. So I'll hand back to Duncan.
Okay, so let's open it up to questions, and we'll start in the room, and then we'll go online, and Helen will help us. There's Mentimeter as well, so we can pay attention to that. But let me open it up in the room first, and then we'll move online. Any questions from anyone in the room? Yes.
Hi, I'm Andy. I work in estates. What struck me is, how do you get to the 6,000 or so that haven't responded? Because I'm guessing there's probably a lot of insight there, and even why they're not engaging with the survey. So it's just how do you plan to get into them?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'll just very briefly say, so I take that number, that 51%, I take the 6,000 who didn't participate as itself a really important signal, right? So I think it's a great question. I don't.
Yeah.
How do we increase that participation level?
Great question, and we in order for the results to be really truly representative, we need to increase that. So I think, you know, one of the stats that came out was faith in action being taken. So I think part of it is proving out that A, we've listened, A, we've taken responsibility and ownership, and here's the things that we're doing. So I think that's one thing, but how do we get those voices now? So Rachel is developing a whole holistic model for how we gather employee voice. We've got the trade union work that we're collaborating with those really strongly with as well. And as Rachel said, we're encouraging managers to have conversations in their areas about the results. So that's not just with the 51 that completed it, that'll be with the whole team. So I think there's a number of strands that will come together to hopefully get the stats up for next time, and previous experience in other organisations that's usually is the case. So this is our baseline, but yeah, always seeking to make sure that we've got colleague voice captured across all of our functions.
Other questions in the room? Yes, right at the back.
Yeah, Georg Christ from History, Salk, but here also on behalf of UCU. Ellie, thank you for all these explanations. You said, okay, 50% of the university leadership has changed. And yeah, people might not like change, but that's just what it is, right? We have to still go ahead with it. Well, looking at the stats and putting it together what my esteemed colleague just before said, that we don't know about all these people who did not engage with the survey. But on the academic side, I did a little bit of not quantitative, very qualitative research, i.e. having chats with people. I wouldn't be too confident that they would change the numbers for better, rather for worse probably, right? Those that are disengaged to say it doesn't matter anymore anyway, or cynical, whatever, selfish, all you want. But yes, the numbers might be worse. So question very simple. What gives you the confidence to move forward with Manchester 2035? All this would suggest to me, of course we have to think ahead, of course we have to plan, of course we have to have visions, but now we need a break. We need very, very urgently a break. First we have to sort out things, because it's a bit facile to say, okay, the 50% who left, the previous senior leadership team, they were just bad at it. They tried their best as well, presumably. So things might be systemic, right? So first we have to figure out what is the problem here before we can rush into the next big project, which might create the next big problem, similar to SCP. So that's my question.
So maybe I'll start, and then Ellie can jump in from a people perspective. So I think you're right that we need to understand the views of the community in a holistic way. And as I said at the beginning, this is only one way we're going to do that. So I think that's a fair comment. And the people who didn't participate in the survey, as we said, I think it's really important that we increase our engagement across the board. I think the second thing, it's not clear to me that what we're hearing from people is the need just to stop. What we're hearing from people is the need for us to get better at the things we need to do to be a successful university. And that's why in the strategy process it's been very important to identify those things that we're calling our foundations that just have to work, that haven't worked well in the past, aren't working now very well, and people want to work in the future. And that's why we've been really purposeful about that, about identifying that aspect of what we've learned from the community. But it's also true that the world doesn't stop just because we want it to stop. So we have to be thinking about the future as well, right? Because we're in an environment where, there are big changes happening in higher education, big changes happening globally, and we want to succeed in the future. So we have to balance those two things. But the survey, along with the other things we're doing, does give us a baseline, does give us a way of testing and understanding how our colleagues are feeling and the challenges that they're facing and the things that they want to improve. So I think we do have to do both. We can't just press stop. I wish I could just stop the world so we could, in a sense, restart. But that isn't the way it works. But having said that, I've certainly got the message. I think we've all got the message that people want those foundational things to work, that they want this to be a better place to work. That, that SoundCloud for me, that was very powerful, is, frustrating, right? Like, we make it hard for people to come to work some days, maybe many days. And that's something we really have to address. So that's the slightly different view than you, but that's the way I guess I'd frame it slightly differently.
Only a couple of builds. Hi, Georg. I guess, we really want to work together with UCU and the rest of the unions in terms of building confidence in the survey. So I would put back to you the responsibility and collective work that we can do together to make sure that we can increase that, because I said I loved a challenge and challenge accepted. So I think I'd love to see us working collaboratively together, particularly with the academic community, about how we can increase confidence and get people to complete the survey.
Okay, let's go online. Have we got somebody online?
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah. Go ahead, David.
Excellent, thank you. This sort of underlines the critique that we've heard. Oh, first of all, thank you to everybody that has done so much work on this, and particularly Rachel. It's really kind of just underlining what people have said already about, whether this engagement is a good measure. And I think I'd like to just observe that it is hugely subject to selection bias. If you are proud of the institution, then you are more likely to fill in the survey. If you have filled in the survey, you are far more likely to care about the future of the university. So these numbers are kind of by their very design going to produce large numbers that perhaps cynically would in glossy brochures. Far more important for our members in trade unions are things like stress, workload, bullying, harassment, pay, job security, and of course those are all the things that we are struggling with. So I suppose let's not try to answer the wrong question. The data that we've got, and massive kudos to the people that have put all the granular stuff on the portal so that we can actually do the right work on it and find the hotspots of things and how to fix them. But let's just take one. 63% in the cultural institutions filled in the survey. 86% of them said that they had experienced bullying in the last year. 86%. 89% said that they'd experienced discrimination. Now, I have, and my colleagues have brought up with 3 different members of the university executive, the matter of what is going on in the John Rylands Library, and there have been 2 articles in the Times about it as well. What we have seen is that there was a collective grievance that was given a whitewash. I think it is worth asking the question, these people in the library that are telling you that they are suffering bullying and discrimination, is it true that their voices matter?
So it is true that they matter, David. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of an investigation, obviously, but we do take it seriously. But as Ellie said, you're right. I mean, that feedback on bullying and harassment and discrimination is really unacceptable. So we need to understand the nature of it. I don't think a whitewash is in anyone's interest for any of that kind of behavior. So let me just accept the premise of your question, that we do need to make sure that we are taking those matters extremely seriously, and we do need to make sure that colleagues feel that they are being heard and that their concerns do really matter. And if we're not doing that, then we have to understand why. And I think, I'm very happy to be held account for that number as we, not only through this survey, but through, the work we do with you and the UCU, and the work we do through people, and the work we do through the staff networks, and the work we do through the, for example, the leaders of the cultural institutions, that we really get to grip with that. So I think the premise of your question is I completely accept. It's unarguable that we have to care about that. And that number is very worrying. And I think it's something we have to get to grips with, and we have to hold ourselves accountable for. Okay, have we got something on Mentimeter?
There's lots going on Menti.
Okay.
So the top question at the moment is around equitable leave across the grades in PS. So questioning whether there will be equitable leave for grade 5 and below, and whether that will be in place before October. So coming at it from a stress point of view, recognising that stress is a key theme coming through.
Great.
Yeah,
Ellie, do you want to?
So it is being looked at. I think I've made that commitment at the PS Open meeting a few months ago, and Rebecca Lee and my team is doing a big analysis piece on that at the moment. So yes, it's being looked at. Will it be in place for October? No, because the analysis has not been completed, and indeed it hasn't been discussed at UE as a proposal whether to, bring live or not.
Okay, maybe another.
Could you just repeat what that question was, because it didn't seem like the mic was working for those online.
So the question was...
that would help if it was on. So the question is around, I'll read it verbatim. So with stress being a key theme coming through in this survey, can we get clarity over when we expect grade 5 and below PS leave will align with the higher grades? Will this be in place for October?
So I guess the upshot is, yes, we're looking at it. Yes, we're taking it seriously, but it won't be in place by October. That's the answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do another Menti or another question online, whichever.
Yeah, so we've had one come through around the timing of this meeting. So lunchtime meetings was missed from this staff survey. It was always asked before. A known issue that staff aren't able to take their breaks. This meeting was scheduled for 12 to 1, and this isn't leading by example. So I guess that's something we can take away.
So sorry, I missed. So the fact that we're having a lunchtime meeting is the problem, right?
Yeah.
Is there a preferred? Is there an alternative time that?
There's not one noted here, but I think probably just in kind of core hours in the morning and the afternoon. So that's something we can take on board for future timings of meetings.
Okay, let's come back into the room, and then we'll go back to Menti and online if there are any other questions in the room. Yeah. Yeah, you do, just so people can hear you online.
Hi, my name is Narinder Mann, and I work in Geography PGCE. Last year, I volunteered to become a grievance case manager, and I found the work absolutely fascinating. The team is amazing that I've worked for. Completed a couple of cases, and unfortunately, quite saddened by all of the cases that I've worked on. And I think the university's got good intentions, but it's often people working in silos which experience, you know, unfortunate working environments, etc., in very, very small teams. From working at the university from a school environment, we do work autonomously quite a lot. So how can you, as a university, make sure that everyone follows the values of the university when autonomy is also a big factor of working here?
Yeah, great question. I'll just correct your question if I may. How can we, as a university, address that? Because that's part of the premise, I think, of your underlying thought there. Look, it's a great question because in many ways, a lot of people work in a university environment precisely because of the autonomy that they feel they have, whether it's in research or teaching, whether it's in professional services. But the challenge is that increasingly, as an institution, we're going to have to work in a more integrated and collaborative way for at least two reasons. One, it's getting to be financially unsustainable for us to work in a very fragmented way. But secondly, many of the things we need to do will require teams of multidisciplinary and multifunctional folks to work together on a problem that collectively we have to solve. Think about the ambitions we have around a more digitally enabled campus. You can't do that in a siloed way. You have to have PJ's team working with the teaching and learning folks, working with the research folks, working with the faculties, working with the schools, working with the divisions. So, I mean, you know, I would say that's actually one of the core themes of the strategy discussions we've been having. How do we create an environment in which people are able to contribute to these larger projects that we have to tackle as an institution? And I completely understand that people are, you know, anxious about the future and are concerned about things that are just not working now, and why don't we fix those? So yes, we need to fix those, but part of fixing it will involve us becoming a much more integrated institution. So I would say this, wouldn't I? But I really do genuinely believe it. If we get the aspects of our strategy right, there'll be more ways in which we're working together as an institution. It won't solve everything overnight. Some things will take longer than others. But I do think that is one of the underlying themes of the strategy. And certainly when we look at the feedback from all the sessions we've been having, that is a common hope as well on the part of, I think, many people in the institution. Not everyone, but certainly a large number. So I hope that's not too abstract, but I do genuinely think that's a really important part of our future. And it's going to be, in some cases, I think it's already happening, and in other cases, we've got, you know, more work to do. But it's a great observation and question. Okay, let's go back then to Menti or online.
Yep. Is it on this time? Yes. So again, going back to stress. Stress is a major issue at the university and has been for some time. A main issue is workload. So how is the university going to address this?
Okay.
Do you want to start,
Yeah.
Rachel, Ellie?
Yeah, so in terms of workload, I guess there's a number of strands that are all focusing on this. So on the academic side, there is a group that's been looking at the workload allocation models across the academic community. We have lots of different models at the moment. I couldn't comment how good or bad they are, but the purpose of that group is really to make sure that we have one university model for allocation for that part of our community. I think as well, I would say there is, you know, what I've heard in the 10 months I've been here now has been, you know, the noise around getting things done here. So Future Foundations, you will have started to hear some communication about this project, is really looking at digitising and improving the processes and ways that we work sort of under the bonnet. So to make it more straightforward for you to transact on the employee side, from the people side, on the finance side, etc. So I think there is a lot of inefficiency within how we work within the organisation because of where we are in our maturity with our standardisation of processes, with our digitisation of processes. So I think there's a number of projects in train that will come together and start to address that.
I mean, the other thing, sorry, Rachel.
I was just going to say, so the questions in the survey around interesting work, it's interesting to look at those in relation to the questions about have you got the equipment processes, systems in place that you need to do your job well. And when you start to look at those sets of questions together, you can sort of see that relationship that, as Ellie said, it's just sometimes really hard to get things done. And that does have an impact on how you feel about the enthusiastic job question and the interesting work as well. So that's something I've noticed, particularly in this survey, as opposed to previous ones, is emerging as a theme and something to take a further look at, I think, yeah.
I mean, the other thing, very quickly, finally, is one thing I want to make sure we do over the next few years is really get a grip on the distribution of projects across the institution and try and actually think about that in a purposeful way. The last, one real danger, and it goes back to the first question or one of the earlier questions about people wanting just a break from all this stuff. I totally get that. But, you know, one thing I've seen happen in other institutions is the university kind of winds up a whole bunch of projects and then sort of sends it forth into the institution. And after 18 months, everyone just goes, stop, this is too much. You know, we can't actually get through our day job and I'm being pulled into yet another thing. So I really want us to take a purposeful approach to how we do projects as a whole. And as Ellie said, out of the SCP report, out of this survey, out of many, many conversations and discussions in many places, from UE all the way through the organization, it's clear that people really want a more sensible approach to that. So that is something we are thinking about quite systematically now. And it will be, you know, in a sense, identifying the one or two things we're going to focus on over a given period. And giving, you know, the appropriate support for that. Because I don't want the whole thing to come grinding to a halt. There's enough stuff that we don't know, you know, the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns that we're going to have to deal with on top of the things we really want to do. So we have to have the capacity to do that. Okay, maybe one more question from Menti or online, and then we'll come back to the room.
Yeah, so I'm going to just scoot down a few questions on Menti because I think we've gone through some of those already and just home in on the humanities focused question. So there are huge change projects ongoing, for example, humanities teaching sustainability. Many are experiencing the same issues as with SEP. Will processes, yeah, sorry, there's a typo that was confusing me. Will processes like this be implemented differently going forward?
Yeah, we had a good discussion, I thought, at Senate about the TSP and the broader issue of how do we make sure we're, you know, delivering these projects in the thoughtful way that I think we all want to see done. And there are some good takeaways from that, you know, we're thinking about. So yes, the bottom line is yes. And the way I'm thinking about this now, it might be termed differently in the future, but I think we need a sort of delivery playbook for the university, where people understand the principles and framework that we use to implement our various initiatives and various projects. So that will be really clear, and it will include the way in which we test that we're listening to people, that we're course correcting where necessary, and the appropriate sort of checks and balances are there, all the while ensuring that we're actually able to execute and do the thing we said we're going to do. So as Ellie said, there's some work going on right now between Ellie's team, myself, the Strategic Change Office, and UE to really start to think that through. And that's going to feature quite prominently in the strategy discussion later on this year, how we're actually going to implement our initiatives as much as what those initiatives might be. And that's super important. So I think the short answer is yes, we want to capture everything we can and what we've learned about how things have gone not so well, but also how things have gone well. So there's some really good examples recently of things being delivered well that we can learn from too, right? So yes, the short answer is yes, that's the ambition. We're still going to get things wrong because it's inevitable. I don't know any initiative or project where I haven't learned something in the course of it, but we can certainly, you know, in the words of Samuel Beckett, you know, fail better in the future as well as hopefully succeed more often. Obviously, is the goal. But we can always, I think we have to become a bit more of a learning organization in that sense. And that means having some structures in place that enable us to do that. Maybe any questions in the room? Back to the room now.
I was only going to comment on the teaching sustainability project, so I'd prefer you to ask your question first.
Yeah, I think we've probably answered it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Jo Wavish from Estates. So my question is just regarding the, obviously we've highlighted that the temperature check is going to be carried out. We're going to have more frequent engagement, which is brilliant. I was just looking at the statistic for people who believe action will be taken, only 36%. It's quite low. So I guess what's the biggest challenge that you see to actually take action? Because obviously we've said it can be difficult to get things done. It's bureaucratic, it's a large organisation. And I guess what are the ideas for overcoming that challenge?
Rachel, do you want to start?
Yes, so thanks. That's a really great question. So this time we've given access to the survey kind of dashboard to a group of leaders across the university and people partners and EDI colleagues as well. And the ability to, for those local teams to work together on local actions where it makes sense to do that. So people partners will be working with the areas that they work with across their people plans, but also any kind of local actions that can just be taken quite quickly. So a lot of the survey questions this time, well, in fact, all of the survey questions were designed to make it easier to take action. So the previous surveys had quite broad questions, and when you look at the responses, it's like it's telling you something, but it's not really helping you to know what to do with that data and insights. So the questions were phrased in a much more to give more actionable kind of responses. So and when I've been doing the support sessions with the dashboard users, you can log actions. So we will be able for the first time to have a comprehensive log of all those local actions and the university level ones as well. And then like some of the questions were around conversations about well-being, for example, and it's quite clear to see where those are happening, where they're perhaps not happening, and so there's the support and the advice in the dashboard to all of the training and development and the resources that are available in the university to help support managers and colleagues to do things like that locally. So it is a hybrid approach. We are learning, as Duncan suggested, as we're going, but that was really important, I think, this time, that not all the actions get pushed up to that kind of university level where they can get stuck. And so lots of the organisations and the universities that people in site work with that I've spoken to, probably 2 or 3 years down the line ahead of us on this hybrid approach, and they've all said that those local actions are the ones that deliver the real change in engagement. It's usually the larger scale university-wide actions that are slower to have impact. So yeah, it's exciting to see how that develops over the next couple of years.
So just 2 quick things. So I don't suggest for a minute that there aren't structural features of the institution and the society in which we live, in which people will run up against. So I'm not expecting people to solve, the political economy of the higher education sector overnight. But having said that, and those structural things that are in our control, I think there are things at the university level we have to get right, and the proof will be in the pudding, frankly, right? That will be the case. Very much a collective effort. But it is a real call to action for colleagues in groups, in your divisions, schools, work units. It is a call to action that you should just crack on and identify the things you think would really help drive the change you can in your group, right? And we can learn from that, as Rachel says. We've tried to make it so that we can see what you're doing, understand what you're doing, and you've got support and help from Rachel and Ellie and the team to really drive that. So I would really encourage colleagues sitting here and online to think about how actually can we take this data away and think of the things that we could start doing tomorrow or the week after or the month after that actually would make a difference to the daily working life of my team or my group. Understanding that there will be structural features of the institution that you'll say, hang on, this is above my pay grade, we need to get this fixed in other ways. Okay, and maybe another Menti question, then we'll come back to one more in the room.
Thank you. So given we've got Peter with us today, I'll go in with the FSE question that's come through. FSE staff survey results are lower than the university results. Will you be investigating why these are lower and what may be impacting this?
Peter needs a microphone that's turned on.
Could be the shortest answer in history. Obviously, yes. So the faculty leadership team took the first look at these results last week. And as Duncan says, actually, what I want to do is see that segregation between faculty level, school level, and local level, but most definitely, yes.
Good. I think there was a question right the center, sorry.
Yeah, hello, my name is Elina. I work at FBMH. I just wanted to highlight again the problem of the 11% of bullying. That is not just a percentage, it's 630 people that came to you to tell you they've been bullied at the university. And there is a zero tolerance policy. However, yeah, it needs to be negotiated or understood well where those 600 plus people coming from. And another, I wanted to just highlight to you an article from Nature, the Science Have a Bullying Problem, that also highlights the fact that it also has a financial aspect of it. So funders like Wellcome Trust will withhold funding if they find out that there is an institution that is highly bullying their employees, if that's not an encouragement enough. And I just wanted, my question would be, after you do your investigation, will us as staff have information and transparency of how many ongoing investigations out there of different people, if they have any kind of length that you would like to share with us? How long would an investigation last? What kind of measures are in the zero tolerance towards the people being bullied? And what kind of limitations do you put on people that are bullying others? Will that be transparent? I feel like there is not enough information on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
So let me tackle the first one, and then in terms of the process and how we report it, I think I'll ask Ellie to see if she can provide. So the first point you made about that's a statistic, but behind each of those statistics, there's a human being that's going through, you know, a very bad experience, and we need to acknowledge that. And as I said, in principle, as I said to David, it's unacceptable. We can't really think that's just, you know, the cost of doing business or whatever. It isn't. So we have to take it seriously, and we have to make sure we have the processes and approaches in place, but also the culture in which people feel confident enough to report. Because of course, 600 people have reported it. There's probably a similar number who haven't reported it, and you know, we need to be honest about that. In terms of how we report against investigations and things, Ellie, what's the story there?
I guess a couple of things. So we've invested in a more senior leader within my team for employee relations called Selene Nagapondi. She joined us 3 months ago now and has already pulled together a really comprehensive, detailed analysis on all of our cases, with not just bullying and harassment specifically. And we had a conversation at UE a week or two ago now around agreeing to the principles of restorative just culture as a key set of principles and ways of working to start to combat this in the future. And that's employee relations more generally, not just bullying and harassment. We don't have sort of good case management technology, shock horror, behind this at the moment. That is coming through the Connect project that IT are leading on. So transparency of reporting and data, we do have that. I don't believe that goes anywhere more broadly in terms of that data. So if there's an appetite for that, then yes, part of this strategy, we can definitely look at how can we get greater visibility as we go on this journey.
So I think the point about being more transparent about the number of investigations and at a high level what the outcomes are and whatnot, I think that's a good suggestion. So let's take that away. There's a similar thing going on around student disciplinary activity as well. So it's similar to that. Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
We've got time for one more, yeah.
And then obviously any questions you want to ask, we can follow up with you offline as well.
Yeah. So the last question, it's great to hear more L&D opportunities are being looked into. Could we request less on leadership and more upskilling to higher grades? Not everyone wants to manage. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need some de-skilling, I think, in leadership. That's probably...
There's two key strands to the well, there's three actually, but I'll talk about two of them in the talent development. So one is leadership capability, so I won't talk about that. That won't be answering the question. But the other is core learning. So we don't really have a learning management system where people can go to access either relevant learning to enable them to do the best work they can in their current role, but also to maybe look at increasing their development to promote their career, or look at sidestepping or moving into a different role, etc. So all of that is being worked on at the moment as well. And we, through Future Foundations, we will have a new learning management system that is targeted to be ready by the end of 2027. So just to manage expectations on that side of it. But in terms of getting some better products, we've got LinkedIn Learning, so there is capability and resources out there now, but it needs a much more structured approach, I think, to help people navigate it. So that is coming, and if anyone's got a particular interest in shaping that or being part of that, then please reach out to myself or Sunil Patel, who leads that part in my team.
So, I mean, I would say coming here from having worked at other places, it is one thing Manchester's a bit behind on, having not just the kind of leadership modules, but the actual career enhancement modules available in an easy, sort of logical way. We just don't have that, and that's something we're trying to build now. Okay, I think that probably brings us to the end. Thank you very much, everyone. Point taken about lunchtime sessions. If other people have views about better times for town halls, please let us know. Either online or in the room, if your question, you weren't able to ask your question or it didn't quite formulate until you get on the bus tonight or whatever, then just send it through and we'll do our best to respond. And otherwise, please keep in touch. And thanks very much for coming along. Much appreciated. Thank you.